So what we're going to cover in this webinar is I'll do a very quick introduction to SOS-UK. There'll be an intro to education for sustainable development and why we're running this webinar. Then we're going to hand over to our guests. So we have Georgina, who is the Associate Professor in Education for Sustainable Development at UWE Bristol. We've also got some staff from their representation team at the SU. And they'll be talking about how they have been training reps on sustainability and education for sustainable development. Then we have Sarah Briggs, who is the Sustainable Project Officer at Keele University. And they've been collaborating with the SU to engage students on embedding sustainability in the curriculum and delivering training to course reps. Then we have Adnan, who's the Education Officer at Leicester SU, and he's going to talk about engaging student reps on the SU's Why is My Curriculum So White campaign. So a big thank you to all of them for joining and sharing their experiences with us today. We will be monitoring the chat box throughout this training. So if you do want to sort of put any questions in the chat box throughout, please do use that, but we'll have a open kind of discussion and Q&A at the end as well. So I think most of you in this call are probably familiar with Students Organising for Sustainability now, but I'll just do a very quick intro to us. So SOS is a new educational charity created by students and staff at NUS in response to the climate emergency and ecological crisis. We formally set up and launched in October last year. And we have three main work streams that we focus on. The first being supporting more students to learn, act and lead on sustainability. Secondly, to be embedding sustainability in formal education across all disciplines from early years to adult learning. And the third, to be making sustainability more inclusive so that it is for everyone. So as part of this, we want to be seeing students leaving tertiary education as part of the solution to the sustainability challenges rather than part of the problem. As we see that sort of 3% of people attend university, but take up 80% of leadership positions. So for this, we need to ensure that we're sort of seeing transformation and change across our campuses, our curriculum and communities. So now I'm going to hand over to Meg, who is also from SOS-UK, to speak a bit more about ESD and the link between curriculum and some of our programs.
Yep, so a lot of you in this call may be familiar with the concept of education for sustainable development. And through our work, through like our programs and our campaigns, we're really working as SOS-UK to ensure that we deliver on those three work streams that Zoe just mentioned. And we're doing that by supporting the sector to embed education for sustainable development into like the whole institution learning experience for students whilst they're in tertiary education. And so it's about moving beyond just having that content of sustainability within the curriculum and supporting students to develop not only the knowledge and the understanding, but also so that they develop the skills and attributes so that they can contribute positively towards sustainability in the future and to help to like safeguard the very best for the environment, society and economic well-being, both like right now and in the future. There's a couple of really nice definitions for ESD that we often use in this slide here. It's also just to like kind of point out, it's really great to have Leicester Students' Union here today talking about why is our curriculum so white, because decolonising the curriculum really sits within this ESD in that we're seeking it like without understanding all perspectives when you're educating learners. It's impossible to ensure that like we can create and contribute towards a better society and a healthier planet in the future. Okay, next slide, cool. If you just click through, because it's got those automated slide. Awesome, thanks Zoe. Okay, so just how that connects with Green Impact Students' Unions and Responsible Futures. It's important to know like that connection of like why we're running this webinar and how it fits with the work that we do. And so we have these two main programs within which, but they're not isolated to these two programs where ESD features. So Green Impact Students' Unions is our flagship sustainability support package and awards program for the student movement, and it really helps unions to run effective projects and campaigns. And we know that some students' unions have used that as a framework to embed curriculum change and transformation through like developing course rep systems. And it also connects deeply with Responsible Futures in that this is our supported change framework where students' unions and universities or colleges work in partnerships for a student audited accreditation mark to embed sustainability across the whole institution and learning experience. And that change framework covers these three areas of change, which is bottom up, middle out, and top down. And you can see here we've got different examples of what that might look like, but specific within this webinar, the bottom up change that we're talking about here is students campaigning for change and students being empowered to champion ESD as course reps or student reps. Yeah, I'll move on to hear about how people are doing that now.
Great, so now we're going to hand over to Hannah, Roshan and Georgie from UWE.
Thank you, I'll just get the slides up. There we go. So firstly, hello everyone, thank you for having us here today and thank you for coming as well. My name is Hannah Tucker and I'm one of the representation coordinators here at the Students' Union at UWE, and I work alongside Rasheen. Rasheen, would you like to introduce yourself quickly?
Hi, I'm not sure if you can see me. I'm Rasheen, I'm also a representation coordinator. We work within different faculties but do the same role.
So today we're going to be talking a little bit about how we engage and train our student representatives with ESD. Later on we'll be hearing from Georgina Gough, who is going to talk more specifically about how students have been working with staff who specifically work within sustainability in their departments as well. So today we're going to specifically be talking about our sustainability department reps. So these reps focus solely on sustainability. They are elected from their course reps and they are kind of the champions of sustainability within their department. There is one each for each department, and this role came to be as a sample of students from UWE. 91% of those said that they want UWE to actively embed and promote sustainability at the university. So these students can really champion the role, and it's where course reps, they know that they have a person to specifically go to about sustainability as well within their department. Before we go on to how we train this specific role, is a general outline of the role for you, but essentially sustainability department reps, they're using the student voice to hold UWE Bristol accountable to their ESD commitments and also to inform on sustainability practices within their departments. They also escalate ideas and feedback where necessary and work really closely with their lead department rep who goes to some of our key meetings within the university as well. So now we're going to move on to our training session. So Rasheen, would you like to start?
Yeah, so our training is a two-part training session jointly run by us, the Students' Union, and the Keys Group, Knowledge Exchange for Sustainability Education, led by Georgie. Firstly, we want to introduce our student reps and our sustainability reps to help them understand where they fit into the wider scheme of things, where the feedback that they get is flowing up to, and how that can influence decisions at specific meetings within our rep structure. Also helping them to understand the role and what it is we're asking them to do. Of course, Hannah just mentioned there, we're asking them to help us hold the university accountable to the ESD commitments and champion sustainability within their departments, but also help them understand the role and remit and what is doable within their role and their tenure. We then move on to showing them a little bit about what we do in the Students' Union, our commitment to sustainability. That includes the Green Team, which is a group of students who are like-minded, switched on, and want to get involved with sustainable practices, whether that be a food fair and farmers market, or whether it's doing a communal garden on campus. Also includes our sustainability committee, which you can see a lovely photo of our members there. They meet termly, I believe, or actually more regular than that, discuss matters of sustainability and how they implement projects within the university and the Students' Union. But also including things like our Sustainability 101, which is actually run by Leah, who's also on this call. So there's workshops about, you know, sustainable practices in your home and in your individual life. We want to get them involved with that from the outset. It's a quick thing they can do to start getting involved rather than waiting to meet with their department. And then it just goes on to sustainability at UWE, which Hannah's gonna go.
Yeah, so the next section is led by Georgie, so she'll go into a bit more detail about this later, but it's talking about how the university, UWE Bristol, is actually embedding sustainability into curriculum and other projects that they have been working on. And it's also a chance for the department representatives, the students, to meet their Keys staff representative as well, which Georgie will outline a bit more later. Our next step in the training is we ask student reps to set some goals and priorities for the year that they'd like to try and complete during their tenure. So the first goal we ask them to complete ourselves is to map the SDGs onto their programme themselves. But they've also, alongside this, come up with a variety of different projects that they want to work on, revolving around their curriculum and also things which are resource-based. To then track this, we have monthly check-ins with them. So me and Machine drop them an email and ask them various things about their progress, things about who they've been talking to about their projects, if their project is completed, if they've started anything new that they'd like to tell us about, anything which is related to sustainability and how they've been successful in it. And this is how we hold them accountable to their position, and then they hold us accountable by making sure that we write about their achievements by being a sustainability department representative on their higher education achievement report, which is the recognition that they get for the role that they have done throughout the year. I believe Rasheen is now going to talk about the improvements we have.
I was muted then, sorry. So yeah, Hannah and myself have only been in the role for just under a year, and we've taken on this system, and we've noticed some improvements we want to make based on the following things. So early and more efficient elections of department reps. I'm sure that you're all aware trying to get reps registered and elected in a timely manner can be quite difficult. So we want to make sure that we're trying to do this in a more effective way. Currently, we elect students join in September, and we're electing department reps early November. So we want to try and speed this up, particularly as we are moving into a digital age now and everything is virtual and online. We're hoping this is going to become more apparent. Our training, we find, and I think you might all agree, that in-person training can be more efficient and effective. Unfortunately, with the current climate, it's all going to have to be virtual now. So we are going to look at ways of making sure our digital training is engaging and as effective as our in-house and face-to-face training. And obviously we would look to hear some good practice from other universities and how we can do that. Third of all, is making sure that we have a really good, strong digital presence. It's something that potentially has lacked in the past within our department, and we want to make sure that as we move forward digitally, we want to have a platform where our student reps, our department reps, lead department reps have a platform where they can talk and get together and share ideas and knowledge, and ensure that we are here for them to provide any support and vice versa. But yeah, we're keen to hear from you all about areas of good practice and how we can improve. I'm going to pass it over to Georgie now.
Okay. Thanks, Rasheen. There we go. Okay, so I'll just be very brief and say something about the university side and where these reps sit within our broader education for sustainable development work. I don't know if my video is working, but so if you could move the slide on, Hannah, for me, please. So we've got a group called KEYS, or Knowledge Exchange for Sustainability Education, and that's been what's a continuously evolving entity, but over the last 5 or 6 years we've had departmental reps from the staff side. So every department in the university's got a staff representative in that group, and when these sustainability student reps were put in place, the first thing we did was to you know, part of the development of that, and I was involved with working with the Students' Union to think about how this would work best for the students' interests and for the to help progress the university's commitments to ESD. We recognised immediately that, you know, linking the student and staff reps was going to be potentially a really strong and powerful mechanism for change, and that was the ultimate goal. And I think it's, you know, as Roisin and Hannah just indicated, this is a fairly new thing, having these sustainability specific student reps. So we will continue to evolve it. And one of the challenges we've had, I think that's useful for others to hear from a learning point of view, is engagement. And Roisin hinted there that, you know, maybe having some more digital presence that's there for students to drop in and see might help. But I would also argue that continuing to encourage them to come to the meetings that we have set up, where they can meet their staff rep and see that this is just a friendly face and somebody who's interested to work with them, is equally as important as having the digital stuff. So it's a fantastic opportunity for these reps to work alongside members of staff to reflect on how students are experiencing sustainability in their curriculum. And that's quite unique. Again, as Hannah and Roisin both explained, there is sustainability training for all the course reps, and we would hope that they would take that thinking into everything they're doing to represent their fellow students. But these sustainability reps have got a chance to really specialise in the sustainability curriculum side of things, to report back on what students are experiencing. As I said, we've done a lot of work on the university side to put a lot of things in place, but we're still trying to understand more clearly how the students are receiving that content, or those ways of teaching, or those ways of assessment. So these ESD reps are really critical to helping us develop a better experience for them. And equally this year, there were 2 particularly exciting reps came in, well, 3, but two projects that have come to fruition. One was very keen to create a one-off day. This was in the healthcare department, and they're working with their staff member and now the wider department to set up a sustainability healthcare event next year. It was to be this year just gone, but that's now pushed into next year. And she's, you know, fantastic, grasped this opportunity and everything that came with it, and is really now working alongside the department to set this event up. Another example of success story, a student again who saw reading lists as a great opportunity for embedding sustainability more. So she's working with academics in her department to produce a sustainability reading list for each of the disciplines in that department, which is absolutely fantastic. And then the third example, which the student worked really hard at, was to have more plants in learning spaces and environments within his faculty. Actually, he decided to take on the whole faculty. Why stop at a department? So that was really exciting as well. And the communication and support, I think, are really vital. The fact that we have a good setup working in partnership with the Students' Union really helps. If you haven't got that, my advice would be just to try and identify 1 or 2 key allies on the university side, ones that are working in already within rep structures, for example, working with reps, or those working on the sustainability side of things, and try to build up that relationship, because I think having the rep system in place is amazing, but you've got to have the willingness to support them and really listen to them on the university side as well. I think that's enough for me, because I know we've got other colleagues from Keele and so on to report as well. But if anyone wants to follow up with some questions at the end, then I'd be happy to do that.
Thank you, Georgie, Hannah and Roisin. That's great to hear. So yeah, we'll now head over to Sarah from Keele University.
Make sure I'm unmuted. That will help. Okay, so thank you very much for inviting me to share how we're embedding the Sustainability Voice Reps at Keele. So I'm a Sustainability Project Officer at Keele University, so I work within the university embedding education for sustainability into the curriculum and the wider student experience. Unfortunately, I was hoping that we might be able to be joined by some colleagues from the Students' Union or the Education Sabbatical Officer today, but unfortunately, the SABs are doing their training, and we've had quite a lot of the SU have been on furlough with COVID. So we're unable to get anybody from the SU. But if anybody has any questions that I can't answer, I'm sure colleagues would be more than happy to sort of feedback and share from the sort of operational embedding things within the voice team side of things with any questions you might have. So I'm just going to go through what are our sustainability voice representatives, where the idea even came from in the first place, how schools are engaged with it, the recruitment, training, engagement with our reps, and then some lessons learned and plans that we have for the future. So the majority of our student voice reps have been existing course reps. So when the normal elections would take place to elect the course reps from each of the programmes, they would then all be invited to the compulsory student voice conference. And when I first started in post, I met with a lot of different colleagues in the Students' Union to build those relationships between the university and the Students' Union, and teams from voice to activities to volunteering. And basically what we wanted to do is deliver this training to everyone who was interested in becoming a sustainability voice rep, thinking about how sustainability connected to their disciplines and how they could be part of that grassroots level of really championing sustainability and being able to feed back to us on how that was actually translating in the teaching that they were receiving. So the idea was to sort of give them that background training so they could evaluate their programs and see where education for sustainability was being embedded, and then make suggestions to program directors and teams through the staff student voice committees. The idea initially started with the Green Impact program. So we had our law school had a team, and they introduced Green Stars back when it was stars rather than student voice representatives. And it worked so well, it inspired the student voice team to look at how they could actually offer something that went across the university. And what was great is, although there are like some environmental law modules and there's some great sort of outreach programs and things within the law school, it was great to see this coming from a school that wasn't just like geography and the environment and environmental studies. And it allows us to sort of use that as a really great example of how relevant sustainability is to all different disciplines, and how all of our students need to be getting that background of education for sustainability through their formal curriculum learning. So when I was appointed as a full-time sustainability project officer back in May 2017, as I mentioned, I worked with the voice team and the education sabbatical officer who was in post at the time, so that we could actually make that a uni-wide rollout. So it's now integrated into each year's voice conference. The students can attend training sessions and are able to sign up at that session to be a voice rep, a sustainability voice rep. So the Students' Union, the voice manager, Emma, she led on working with the quality assurance team to make sure that, that everything that needed to be put in place got that buy-in from the university's quality assurance team. And each year they give like a Tools for Schools pack to the different schools' voice champions. And it includes all different sorts of advice, guidance on different things that the student voice representatives and that the school should be doing to support those voice representatives in their role in feeding into the programmes. And so being able to link in some specific sustainability information meant that that was embedded into that communication channel that was already existing, which was really useful. The schools with sustainability voice representatives then also add an additional agenda item to their staff student voice committees, so that sustainability concerns, questions, suggestions can all be raised and discussed. And the beauty of that is that there may be one student sustainability voice representative sitting on that committee, but other students who are part of that committee and who are in that room are then able to have those discussions with the academic staff and feed into that discussion. The Students' Union also deliver like a voice champion support day each year, and the idea is that that will cover different topics each time. So we included sustainability and education for sustainability as one of those sessions, so that we could talk about the role of the sustainability voice reps, answer any questions that people may have, and sort of get that buy-in face to face, rather than it just being that, here you go, here's a toolkit, here's what we're doing, this is happening to you. It made it more of that sort of, okay, let's get some dialogue going about what this is going to look like, and whether people have got any suggestions for shaping that as well, so that it's everybody brought into that process. As Georgie was saying, it's really important, I think, to get that buy-in and bring other people along on that journey who can be those champions. And then if you've got people who are sort of coming in new to teaching and leading modules, it's a good way to then almost be able to buddy people up and share that enthusiasm. So in terms of recruiting, training and engaging our reps, we have the training session at the voice conferences. The first voice conference, we had 25 reps who signed up across diverse different programs. And then we also had a training session during the SDG teaching. So we first had wanted to launch in 2017, but the voice conference had already happened. So we had that first training session, which was, it was almost a little bit too late in the year to actually be that effective, but we got students from a range of different areas who were interested, who then still gave us some feedback on what we could do for the following year. And I think that's what's been really valuable, of getting a few different students to actually share their experience and help us to shape the programme for what it looks like each year. As I say, we had 25 reps who then signed up at the 2018 conference. Last year we had the session running twice as well, so that we could actually make sure we weren't just offering people a choice of that one session, and if they missed it they couldn't come along. So it meant that we got students could choose between the different parallel sessions and still come and engage with the sustainability training. And some of those didn't go on to be sustainability voice reps, but would still have had that training that they could then bear in mind while they were carrying out their role as just a normal student voice representative. The previous voice coordinator who has left created an online Facebook group and some training web pages, which have been really useful, so that if students want to refer back to any of the materials, or if they have any questions, they can use that Facebook group to sort of support each other. And again, it's the sort of thing where we can say to the students, do you prefer Facebook, WhatsApp group, what works for you? And as part of our support and sort of building a community around sustainability more widely, as we've got sort of the blended learning approach, we're creating like a Teams drive. So we'll be able to have a sustainability voice rep subsection of that as well, that we can then bring students into. And that will give those links then back between sort of formal curriculum and co-curriculum projects. And perhaps students will then be able to see those connections and say, oh, could you actually integrate projects or dissertations that explore these particular co-curriculum projects that are happening across the university, and have that two-way mechanism for, although we're working with academic staff across the university and sharing the resources and projects, the students coming in saying, could we look at psychology and how it links to this project around zero waste and consumer behaviour? That could have more impact, because the students are actually asking for that to be integrated into their modules. I also worked with the Pro-Vice Chancellor for Students this year, who launched the Keele 100, which is 100 of their normal student voice reps. They have an afternoon where they'll have 2 different topics and come together and discuss those topics and feedback. It had been planned for during February and then was affected by strikes, and it felt inappropriate to hold it during that time. It then got moved to March and then had to be cancelled because of COVID-19. So we ended up setting up a virtual session, which had a lot smaller group of students. There were about 30 students who engaged, but we had some really fantastic conversation and findings that came from it. And we're also going to redo sustainability as a topic in semester 1, just to make sure that anybody who wasn't able to engage is still able to engage. And that just allowed us to ask students to feed in about how we're embedding sustainability, how we can have a sustainable future going beyond COVID-19 and linking that back to the curriculum. So we hold our SDG teaching exhibition each year now as well, and this year we got the student voice reps. We asked them if they would feed in with things around the curriculum, and how their different disciplines linked to sustainability challenges. And we had some like interactive sort of sheets that were up so students could come along and just add their thoughts and reflections. And we also ran our sustainable development goal photo competition again. And a really great story from that was with the medicine school. They ran a student competition to submit photographs that represented the goals, and then gave away a box for our Way to Go shop as a prize for the best entry. So just some lessons that we've learned of over the last couple of years. So I think one of the key things is having continuity with staff. I think some of our difficulties have come from getting new starters coming in, and people leaving roles, and then needing to make sure that we can keep that continuity, both for the students, but also having those champions within the schools who can make sure that we've got reps in place. Having collaboration between the university and the SU is really key, including like the quality manager for quality assurance processes. And then that makes it more likely that it's not just somebody's project, that if they leave, the project stops, that it's something that becomes ingrained part of the culture and part of the process. The schools need to buy into the system so that it can be seen as something that is, as I say, part of the culture and part of how the voice process works, and students feeding back on ESD specifically. Being flexible can attract more students. So we didn't make it that you have to be a voice rep to be a sustainability voice rep. If people didn't want to be a full student voice rep, they could still sign up to be a sustainability voice rep, especially if there wasn't already somebody else in their school. And then utilising other events to link to ESD can just be so effective for promotion and getting students engaged, from our Keele Green Festival, which is like our version of Green Week. The SDG teaching is brilliant for it, but also through induction and many other activities that I'm sure you all have running throughout the year. Plans for development. I want to review how we can make sure we continue supporting students during blended learning delivery. We've got a few options on that with the digital resources and the Teams Drive. Also linking in with lead voice reps in the schools. So we've got a lead voice rep for each of the different schools, and that could then give us more of that sort of connection of a student who has got that oversight of all the different programs within a particular area. Continuing to involve sustainability voice reps with things like the SDG teaching, so they can be then putting pressure on their academic staff to make those pledges to embed sustainability into their teaching, particularly during that teaching week, but be more proactive and planning earlier. Integrating it into our sustainability benchmark, which is like an accreditation for all of our different schools, a bit like Green Impact, making that one of the criteria that they have to have voice reps for sustainability within their area. And then the second Keele 100 sustainability event that I mentioned. So I hope that was useful. And again, if you've got any questions, I'd be happy to answer them on the Q&A bit at the end.
Thanks, Sarah. Great to hear. So now I'm going to pass over to Adnan, who is the Education Officer at Leicester SU.
Okay, great. Hi, everyone. Sorry, by the way, I don't have any slides, so you're just going to have to bear with my voice. I'm also battling with hay fever at the minute, so if I'm constantly, if you constantly see like a napkin or something, you know why. And I'm also at home, so if you hear any other like outside noise, don't be alarmed. I'm just at home with several different people. So first of all, thank you to Zoe for inviting me to this. I was really excited to take part, and I think it's really important that particularly student union sabbatical officers, as they're coming in, are aware of the importance of these issues. And thanks again to everyone else who took part and presented. There's a lot of really interesting stuff going on up and down the country. Just alluding on what was said earlier, the first thing I would say is, as an SU, we've kind of made it clear when it comes to the climate crisis, it is very much a race issue, and it goes hand in hand with decolonization, in the sense that if you look at the climate crisis globally, there is a disproportionate impact on those communities who reside within what is known as the global south. Sorry, just 1 minute. Sorry. All right, sorry. So that's very much what our kind of work and approach is centered around when it comes to the climate crisis. And when it comes to decolonizing the curriculum or decolonizing the university or the academy, it is fundamentally a grassroots initiative and vision. So in terms of the Why is My Curriculum White campaign and bringing in student reps into that, I suppose the first thing for me, so some context, I got elected this time last year for my first term, and I'm now re-elected for my second term. So when I first got elected this time last year, what I really wanted to focus on was the training that's offered to our course reps and other student reps throughout the university, and whether there was a part of the training dedicated to decolonizing the curriculum and decolonizing education. And we kind of kickstarted something. It was a very, very basic training program we had, which was centered around so what we had was the Students' Union organizes a Student Leaders Conference, which is like a weekend away on our campus, and different workshops. One of the workshops was decolonizing education, and what it basically covered was what do we mean by it very briefly, why it's important, and what reps can on a school level lobby for and push for. And this year we've changed it slightly differently. So this year, when we do come around to Student Leaders Conference, which I presume will be virtual, we're calling it grassroots activism training, because we think it's broader than just curricula, and things we're looking to cover are decolonization and how it's different to diversity, and how they're two very different concepts that we need to look at. And then we've also created a resource for our student reps, on a resource guide on decolonizing education, which covers what we mean by decolonizing education, why it's important, what the BME awarding gap and attainment gap is, why that's important, and what reps can lobby for at a school level as well, and then also like a recommended reading list of sorts for reps. That's also a resource we're getting ready for academics as well. And as part of the training, part of our plan, so we also, as well as course reps, we have what's known as equality and liberation champions, which, long story short, are essentially course rep, but their remit is very much focused around what it says on the tin. And part of our training this year is to kind of empower them to create pledge lists for their schools, which they can use to hold their schools to account on. And I think another way of centering, another priority for us in terms of centering course reps in all of this is kind of ensuring there's like a slight structural reframing of how reps are kind of the forum through which reps are listened to and are empowered. So usually, universities tend to have what's known as student staff committees at school level where course reps will sit on. But some schools at our university, namely the School of English, have changed that slightly, where it's a bit less formal, whereby course reps, instead of sitting at like a formal committee whereby there's several different people there and you kind of just have to talk, we're trying to create like environments where it's a bit less intimidating and you're able to build like those individual relationships and rapport. Because we found that when it comes to building those individual relationships, more tends to be done. Reps tend to be listened to a bit more, or feel like they listen to a bit more, and it's just a less intimidating environment, particularly around issues of sustainability and decolonization, which are often which can be sensitive issues. In regards to the Why is My Curriculum White campaign specifically, we also held panel events for students and staff. So we held panel events on decolonizing education broadly, where we had the likes of Adam Elliott Cooper attending, who's an academic at King's College, I think, but don't take my word for that. And then we had another panel event on eugenics and scientific racism, and like the history of science in kind of legitimizing racism. And then we also held workshops for students and staff particularly around decolonizing STEM, science, technology, engineering, and maths. And that workshop, and I think it fits in quite nicely with sustainability as well. That workshop prioritized the need to evaluate the impact of our research on wider society. So what's the impact of the research that we're doing at our universities on wider society? Often we're in these echo chambers where we're doing research and we're not often thinking about generally the wider community we base ourselves in, and what the impact it could have there. And the questions we need to ask is what impact does it have on wider society? Who benefits from this research and who doesn't, and who's missing from the research? And that's something we're trying to empower our reps to push their schools on, and try and create modules around that, basically. And then another key approach for us is obviously co-creationism when it comes to the curriculum. So myself, along with the Pro Vice Chancellor for Education, we organised an away day back in February, which seems like an eternity away. We organised an away day for reps and academics, which consisted of workshops and action planning centred around decolonising the curriculum and closing the Black and/or BME awarding gap. We've chosen to focus on the Black awarding gap because the disparity tends to be bigger for Black and white students than BME and white students. And the model behind that is if you get rid of the biggest disparities, then the smaller disparities will follow. And basically, it was actually a really, really empowering away day where you had students from different faculties and schools sitting with their academic counterparts and just coming up with action plans on how they at a localized level can incorporate this within their work, within the curriculum. And that's gone to college level learning and teaching committees for approval. And each year those action plans will be evaluated and followed up on, and basically just a way of ensuring that action is used. Another initiative we had going last year was a pilot program, so we called it curriculum consultancy, where we hired and paid students and trained them to evaluate school material, evaluate module material at modular level, and provide recommendations to schools and to particular modules. And that was a pilot program which focused on 5 schools which had the biggest satisfaction gaps between white students and BME students according to our NSS results. So that was a pilot program. This year we're looking to expand it a bit more, with the SU playing a bigger role, where we want to empower students a bit more in regards to sustainability, but also decolonizing, a decolonizing angle to that. And then something else for me this year, a priority, is creating a decolonizing network and a student-led decolonizing campaign this year. So further context to what's going on at Leicester, the university will be establishing a research institute dedicated to decoloniality and inclusivity. Our plan is, in collaboration with them, is to create a student staff network, with the SU overlooking student organising and training, and the institute covering, similar sorts of things for academic staff members. And the whole aim of the network, what we envision of the networking campaign, is that it's going to be something that covers more than just the curricula. We want to create a student-led, almost like a decolonization vision / manifesto on divestment, which is very, very important, I think, to issues when it comes to tackling the climate crisis, democratization, culturally competent mental health care, and then anti-marketization, as well as looking at the curricula. We also want to look at the retention as well as access of students of colour and Black students in particular. So yeah, I feel like I've just verbally thrown a whole load of stuff at people without any kind of engagement of sorts. But if anyone has any questions, yeah, feel free to drop it in the chat. I'll drop my email as well if anyone wants any resources or anything. But yeah.
Thanks, Adnan. That's great to hear. I think these have all particularly kind of showcased some really nice examples of how universities and our institutions are sort of collaborating and working together to bring these transformations to education. So we're going to move on to a sort of Q&A session now. So to start that off, we've got a question for our speakers, which is, what top advice would you give to those who are just starting out on engaging their student or course reps with sustainability learning? Obviously, we recognise that everyone's at different stages with this. So yeah, those top bits of advice who are just starting out.
My video isn't working, but it is Hannah from UWE still, if you can hear me. Our key bit of advice, I mean, Georgie kind of touched on it already, but it is to try and find those key staff members in different departments who can be mentors for these students to kind of get student reps to get into it, because then you have the partnership built immediately. We're very fortunate that we have got the Keys group. We've got this group that we can go to really easily of staff across the whole university. But as Georgie said, if you didn't have that, it's quite important to just kind of reach out to those departments and highlight those few staff members who are interested in sustainable education and also in student voice as well. And those partnerships, once they come together and they work, they really do work, because it just gives the student that easy face they can turn to all the time. You know, they have someone then there that they can pass feedback on to and really work on projects together with as well. And also just to make sure that you're really championing sustainability and what students have accomplished in their kind of goals towards sustainability, putting this on social media and like really shouting about it, because if the more students hear about it, then the next year, if you've got students who are staying with you, then they're going to see this, remember this, and hopefully, you know, move forward and want to try and join in on this as well.
Yeah, definitely echoing what Hannah said. It's Rasheen from UWE also. But the other thing is also trying to help students understand the breadth of sustainability. We sometimes have students who study maybe environmental degrees, and they get it because it's in the content of their course. However, we sometimes get students who don't fully see how sustainability can be applied in their discipline. It's helping them understand that the breadth of sustainability is so wide, and there are areas in which it can be applied to their discipline, and how they can actually start looking at it and understanding that they can get involved despite from the outset you might not think their courses has any relation to sustainability.
Yeah, excellent advice. Adnan or Sarah, do you have anything to add to those points?
Yeah, I think I'd definitely echo getting the sort of the champions and mentors and buy-in from key people both in the university and the Students' Union. I think something that can be really useful is looking at what existing processes are in place and how the course reps can be integrated into that existing process. So where there's already like a training day that happens, being able to build into that, where there's like an online portal with training, adding sustainability training for course reps into that, so that it's becoming not just something completely new that you've got to then push it out to people and get them even knowing it exists, but that it's something that they will also be going to that event or through that process or to that digital resource for other reasons as well. And I think being able to use sort of frameworks and things like the Sustainable Development Goals is really useful as that way of just getting people understanding that breadth of sustainability, whether it's, you know, it's not just the environmental, it's the social, it's the economic, and bringing that all together. And I think things like the SDG teaching are a fantastic way of being able to get people connecting to that.
Yeah, no, I completely echo what's been said, particularly what Sarah said around trading. I think that's really important, and having that a vast array. I didn't want to add too much. The only thing I would say is when it comes to this sort of stuff, it's important that we have clear definitions of what we mean by sustainability. I mean, generally we have an idea what it is, but I think often in universities we're often you know, they can often get lost and we often lose meaning. And I think it's very, very important that there's a clear definition of what it is, but also what it looks like in application to your local, you know, context. But yeah.
Yeah, definitely. That's a good point. And we had a question in the chat box for you, Sarah, which was, what content do you cover in the training sessions for reps?
Unmute myself. So I give a broad background on what education for sustainability is and what sustainability is. We've got a great resource that people might be interested in using. It was created through something called the Listening Project that Zoe Robinson led at Keele. And it's got all different images of different aspects of sustainability. And we ask people to pick one of those cards that most represents sustainability to them, just to get them having those conversations and thinking about what sustainability represents in terms of their own perceptions and where they're coming from, but also their discipline. And then we also do some exercises around mapping their disciplines to the Sustainable Development Goals, like at UWE, and then thinking about ways that they can connect their programme to co-curriculum projects and hidden curriculum projects that they're either aware of, or by the end of the session they end up being aware of, so they can see those ways of linking into living laboratory approaches, campus as classroom, and being able to actually use the whole learning experience that they have while they're at Keele and connect that back to what they're doing, and sort of some key tips and almost like a toolkit that they can take back to say, right, could we have little podules of sustainability? Could we have case studies that are integrated into modules? Could we review the processes around how assessments are submitted, so that they've got the sort of the background of what sustainability is, understanding what that means to them and to their course, how they can then engage their course, their cohort, and then the different tools that they can use to try and further the way that sustainability is embedded.
Okay, so we'll open up and see if anyone else has any questions. So you may want to use the kind of raise your hand function, and we can sort of go over to you and let you turn on your mic and ask, or yeah, type a question in the chat box, and I can read those out to ask our hosts. We also did have something in the chat box earlier that said, how many UK universities are including sustainability department reps to their departments or schools? I feel like there might be someone that knows that answer. I'd be very impressed if someone knows the answer to that. But maybe if you are from a university or students' union and you do have sustainability departments reps, maybe just add that in the chat box. Say, I'm from Keele University and we have sustainability department reps.
Zoe, just as a, this is Georgie from UWE, if my video is not coming through, just something while they're waiting for any other questions to come through, to suggest to the students' unions who are kind of just starting with this and wondering whether they need to put in place specialist sustainability reps. And I would say that it might be more useful just to start with general sustainability training for all the reps, rather than try to start off with a cohort of a smaller cohort of sustainability only reps, because I think that there's almost in terms of impact, potentially far more impact in doing that rather than starting with some specialist reps first off, and particularly if the union itself is at a very early stage of engaging with sustainability and trying to pin down what it all means and where the opportunities are.
Thanks. So we have a question in the chat box from Louise. It says, I wondered if you could elaborate on the rewards for student reps. This sounds much more involved than standard course reps. How much time do they typically spend per week working on this as part of their role?
Was that to anyone in particular, or?
I would have thought it's maybe slightly towards UWE or Keele in terms of, sort of rewards for student reps, but obviously Adnan, if you do have something similar, then step in as well.
Sure, I can definitely talk to you about our rewards for student reps. So we do Rep of the Month, which is a students can self-nominate themselves, or a staff member can nominate them, and they're all put into the hat. We ask them to tell us what they've been up to, what successes they've had, if they've had a breakthrough on a project, that kind of thing. We evaluate them every month and choose a rep we think has made a really great, outstanding contribution that month or during their time. We reward them with, in normal circumstances, a free lunch at our SU bar. They also get some sort of merch from the Students' Union. We are looking how to do that for the next term when we can't have everyone in for lunch, but they do get some sort of tangible reward.
And also for the department reps more specifically, so obviously there is a bit more involvement in this role, as you suggest, Louise. We we always say there's a barrier to the role. We would never expect them to do more than like 2 to 3 hours a week on the role. And in terms of their rewards that they get as department reps, on their training, they received a free breakfast with us just because of the time of day. It would have been some kind of meal, and for that one, it just happened to be in the morning. And the rep of the month, like Rasheen mentioned, and also on, as I mentioned earlier, on their higher education achievement report, it will say that they were a sustainability department rep, and also they will get a rep certificate as well as that.
Yeah, at Keele, like with UWE, the students can log all of their volunteering hours that is then here recordable. I think at the moment, really, it's more that warm, fuzzy feeling of having contributed to the course and fed forward for incoming students. And in terms of the amount of time that they spend, it's very much up to the individual students. We're sort of there to provide additional support and training if they're interested in developing their knowledge more. I want to make sure that we can work with the voice department and start to sort of hold a few more, like actually, you know, a couple of times a semester, actually having like a breakfast or a meeting to talk through specific activities or things that they want to work on. But at the moment, it's more sort of the skills, the attributes they're developing, things they can then use as experience for their on their CV, and then the here recordable hours.
Excellent, thanks. Time is running away, so it's just gone half past. So I'm just going to kind of wrap up. So obviously a massive thank you to Georgie, Hannah, Rasheen, Adnan and Sarah, all for kind of presenting and help run this webinar. This was obviously kind of done through SOS as part of our Green Impact Students Union programme and Responsible Futures programme as well. So if you have any kind of further questions around our programmes or just generally around SOS, our email addresses are on that slide there. And you can find details obviously on our website and social media as well. We're going to be doing some more of these webinars as part of our Green Impact Students Union kind of network and support. So the next ones will just kind of be accessible for our GSU kind of program participants, with our next one being focusing on student gardening and growing. Again, we've got a learning academy now with SOS-UK, which is sort of learning and training opportunities. So these are some of the things that we've got provided. If you want to find out more about those, you can visit our website. And yeah, so what we're kind of as well doing as part of, yeah, we've obviously spoken a lot about sustainability here, and I think what was really highlighted is that we're trying to show how much sustainability encompasses and how this is crucial to like our education system, and obviously how important it is that decolonizing education is a part of that, and we're going to be doing some work to really kind of more clearly show that as well and embed that in our ESD work. But obviously, yeah, if you do have any questions, please do kind of get in touch with us and also with any of the people who presented today. And just like, yeah, once again, a massive thank you for those who did present, and thank you to all of you for joining us. But that's it. Otherwise, we're done. Thank you very much.